So I'm just finishing off harvesting the last few peppers from this bed. I grow 3 beds of peppers, all this size, basically about 2 meters squared. And yeah, they grow absolutely fabulously in these little low tunnels. So much better than they grow in the polytunnel, and actually better than they grow in the greenhouse back at home. They grow outside okay as well, but I just think the low tunnels are the optimum really. They provide just that little bit of extra shelter from the wind, just that little bit of extra heat, but you're still getting good ventilation and good light levels. They really love it. The way I do my peppers is I tend to start the first batch in December. They're the early ones that go in the greenhouse, and they just give me a harvest about a month earlier than the ones that I start at the beginning of February. I start them under grow lights and move them, keep them in the house until kind of April time, about the beginning of April. Then I move them into the greenhouse because I just don't have space in the house from that point onwards. And then I plant them out in the greenhouse in April. And as I say, they get, I'm harvesting those in about June. And all the way through, obviously still harvesting those now. But I tend to move those out of the greenhouse in about July, as many as I can find space for out in the rest of the garden. I find they actually do better in the garden than they do in the greenhouse, partly because the greenhouse is slightly shaded, but also because the greenhouse is just too hot for peppers. So the best peppers that I grow, as I said, are in these low tunnels, and I tend to put these out middle of May, sometimes depending on the weather a little bit later on than that, and I put them 6 to a bed. And you'll see as I clear this bed basically how I plant them. Starting off with, I always use a cane, and at the moment I'm using these green canes, metal canes with a plastic coating, and they're just quite neat. This is the 3rd year I think I've been using them, and they're still in reasonable condition. But yeah, as I say, as I clear it, you'll see I've got 6 to a bed, and I've planted them through these halos, and I find that makes it so easy. I mean, there's a few benefits to the halos. First benefit is that it makes watering really easy. You know exactly how much water you're giving each plant, and all the water gets down into the root zone because of those little pegs on the bottom of the of the halos. And yeah, when you know that each plant is getting exactly the right amount of water, it makes a difference rather than it all running off to the sides and down the sides of these raised beds, which would otherwise happen. So the next thing that I do is I mulch with strulch, and the halos hold the strulch back. So I tend to put about this much, so an inch and a half of strulch on. And I'm reusing the strulch from last year. So this is the 3rd year for this batch of strulch here. And it looks like it's going to do another year as well. So at least 4 years before I compost it. I think that makes it really cost effective, and it halves about the amount of watering that I need to do. So instead of watering twice a week, I tend to water about once a week. And I tend to use 1 10-litre watering can for each metre squared. So 6 plants share 1 10-litre watering can. And I water at the same time as I feed. I generally feed once a week, and I water once a week. I always have these low tunnels ventilated. Even when it's sort of harsh weather, I'll have them just sort of propped up on one of these, so sort of 2 inches open. But for a lot of the time, I have them propped up like this. So, you know, maybe 12 inches open, something like that. Very rarely do I have them fully open like this, because it's always a bit too windy here by the seaside to do that. So I'll show you the harvest from this bed, the final harvest, which is obviously a small portion of the total harvest, because we've been harvesting this bed since July, and it's given us some beautiful harvests. I'll just put a few harvest photos up so you can see the type of sort of weekly harvest that we're getting from the pepper beds. And I've got 1 pepper bed left, which I'll show you now. So all these pepper beds are planted at the same time, but this bed suffered really badly from aphids, and it knocked it back a bit. And of course, you know, like always, they kind of grow through the aphid problems once they're planted in the ground. And so they're on them back a little bit, so they're coming ready just a little bit later than the others. So I've decided to leave this bed well into October to give us a continuous sort of harvest of fresh peppers for as long as possible. Our freezer is full of fresh peppers, and we've been eating them a lot of peppers and giving a lot away. I notice here I've got a little bit of frost burn because we have had the first frost here, but the peppers in general are okay. It's just where those leaves were sort of pushing up against the plastic. So the plants are fine, the peppers are fine, and we've got quite a nice range of peppers here which we'll just step through. So we've got these here, which are the lunchbox peppers, and the plants are pretty kind of overloaded with these little peppers, and these are just, well, they're great for lunchbox. The grandkids love them. They're quite sweet and very prolific, although probably in weight terms the harvest isn't as good as some of the bigger bell peppers, but yeah, really happy with those, looking lovely. On the other bed I've just harvested the long yellow Ringo peppers, which are, you know, a bullhorn sort of type of pepper, and obviously they're yellow, and they're pretty good. Quite like them, but these are new Ace, and yeah, I mean, these are lovely too. Really beautiful harvest of these, and they're just starting to ripen now, so I think by the middle of October most of those should have ripened off. And then I've got here, I think these are also new Ace, and I've got some Akron there at the back, and yeah, they're lovely. And I've also got some, I don't remember what they're called now. Anyway, I'll pop it up on the screen. But they're ripening off really nice. So we've got some really nice sized bell peppers there, really great for stuffing, and yeah, really happy with those. So I've done 3 different varieties of red pepper, new Ace, the one I can't remember, and Akron, and really I wouldn't tend to choose between them. They've all got their sort of pros and cons. They all come at slightly different times, different sort of mix of sizes and things like that. So I just like to grow 3 different types. I find it's just useful to sort of get your abundance through diversity in gardening. As I say, you know, you've got by doing 3 different varieties, you've got different timings, different sizes, and different kind of resistance to potential problems, you know, disease and pests and things like that. So yeah, we tend to, for the red peppers, which are the most important for us, we do 3 varieties. So the long yellow Ringo, just nice, gives a bit of extra colour, and we do an orange variety as well as the little lunch boxes. So quite a few different types, but not a huge number. And the seeds keep well with peppers, so you can use them from year to year. And I've always been pretty happy with the yield, and certainly this bed is looking pretty glorious. Well, so chopping all those pepper stems and leaves up was hard work.
Hello.
Hi. And I just like to get some compost from the adjacent bin, and basically just keep turning the 2 bins into each other and adding more greens as I go, because there's plenty of woody bits left in this compost, in this bin here, to provide plenty of browns. So hopefully you can see that the Strulch did its job, and basically this whole bed is pretty much weed free. There was just one weed that I had to take out of here, and there's a few, just the odd weed that's managed to push through, but basically pretty much nothing. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking all this strulch, and that's the reason why I haven't been watering. Partly is just to ripen off the peppers, but also so that this strulch is all lovely and dry. I want to bag it up nice and dry, and I pretty much use my whole mini greenhouse for bags of strulch, because I'm using it for all the pepper beds and all the melon beds and all the courgette beds, as well as using it in the polytunnel. And I've just cleared it out of the polytunnel as well, getting ready to get the polytunnel all cleaned out and replanted for winter. So yeah, it's a pretty quick job, as you can see. So there we go, that's the bed all cleared. 1 bag of strulch for next year, and 6 peppers per bed, which come out nice and easy. A little bit of strulch left on the surface, I don't mind that. I just basically mix that now into the soil, and it just rots down over winter. And I will be planting this bed up soon, probably with Asian greens. I did just want to point out that I don't dedicate these beds to peppers. All the way down here and up the sides, halfway up the sides here, I'll plant lettuces. And for 3 pepper beds, that is enough space for all of my summer lettuces, basically. So that seems to work out really nicely for me. There's some mighty root systems on these. You could, if you wanted, leave the roots in. I used to do that years ago. I tend to find now there's not a lot of advantage to it, and it just allows me to break the surface soil up a little bit and mix this strulch layer in nicely. And once all this is levelled, I will need to give it quite a lot of water. So that's me all done for the day. This bed's going to be Asian greens, pak choi in this one, tatsoi in this one, and lettuces in the one that I just cleared. I'm going to go away and give a lot of peppers away. I've got a comprehensive guide to growing peppers. If you want to check that out, there's a link to that in the description below, as well as all my other growing guides and everything else in my ebook. It's all for free. You can also subscribe to my newsletter at steverichards.substack.com. This is the Outgrow channel, and I'll see you soon.